It's just my luck as I put a guide out for a game mode, the old hide and seek. A new game mode came out, and the pain doesn't stop there. Oh boy, no, the pain, it continues. And that pain is a new PvE mode, or well, co-op mode I guess they're calling it now, or I'd call it a challenge mode called Hands That Bind. And I reckon a lot of people out there are feeling quite a bit of this pain too, and I'm going to try and give my guide as to how to tackle this mode, and it's not 100%, all the time, but I think this is the best way to approach it, or the best way that I know. And also, a lot of people did give some good suggestions in the last video in the comment section, so I'd suggest, once you've watched this video, tried out my method a few times, or you just look down and have a look at the methods that other people are posting, as something quite creative might come up there. And if you find a good method, be sure to give them a like so that they get to the top, and maybe I'll pin some if they're really important and they just work out every time. But basically, I went into the game actively looking for a method that would work if you went in on your own and you had a random team and they didn't necessarily pick everything that you wanted to go with you. But I think that you still need some element of organization for your team, and if not, then you have to have a lot of look as to how the bots move. So before we start, this mode is basically 3 victors that ulti all of the time, and they've got morale boost 3, but I don't think that even really matters, they just generally ulti all of the time. They do have life rip, but they don't shoot at you all that much, so you don't need to worry about it too much. And then you also have 2 Dorvalds, and they both have this ability to basically root you. Like Grover's legendary that throws out the axe, and instead of cripple, it will completely root you, which is difficult to deal with. And to be honest, if you get caught out by the Victor and they're ulting into your face, you're pretty much dead. And these Victors seem to have quite a bit more health than usual, and with the Torvalds, occasionally they get shielded as well. Now, like last time, my guide did revolve around a champion that I thought could win most of the time, and this time, it's Skye. So Skye's Q, her smoke bomb, currently makes the bot stop and do an emote. And they'll emote as long as they're in the smoke, and as long as you don't get close to them, or attack them too close up. So you can fire at them from far away, about, say, 10 meters, I'd say, or maybe 8 meters to 8 to 10 meters is sort of the range, and then once you get closer, like in the 5 to 3 meter range, then they'll still come at you, even though they're in the smoke emoting. So that's one tip to be very cautious of. But this time, I've actually got a whole loadout just dedicated to this game mode, and doing the Q and getting the smoke bomb down as much as possible. And if you want to find that loadout, it is called PvE, and it's in my loadout, so if you just search for Joshino on the Skye, so if you go to Skye, go to loadouts, then go to import loadout by name, search for Joshino, and then find PvE. What it basically does is reduces the cooldown of smoke, and also makes the smoke last longer. And normal smoke doesn't last long enough to really burst down a Victor on your own as a Skye with their extra health, but with the extra time in the smoke, they'll be emoting long enough that you can pretty much kill them from full health to death, and just with you, just single bursting them down. And sometimes you need that because your allies will just die. And I'm not gonna lie, you can get allied with some pretty random people and random levels of players in this mode, and I do think that they probably should increase the skill cap and the level required to join these games, seeing as it is so ridiculously hard. But also it has some things like the poison bolts will reduce the cooldown of the smoke bomb, and a few other things. Now, some people have said that they use the legendary in the game that resets all your abilities when you get the kill, but I find that with all of the cards that I have, and if I buy Chronos, so the cooldown reduction 1 and 2, at the very start of the game, and then wait for Chronos 3 as my next item, I'll pretty much have Smoke Bomb up enough that I can spam it pretty much, so I don't need the eliminations to keep using my abilities. However, other people have used that and maybe used a normal build, and that seems to work as well. But what I use is the legendary that buffs your poison darts and gives you that 20% extra damage. And I think that's quite important, as it just gives you a bit more speed bursting down the Victor, and just lets you move on to the next target and throw another smoke out and catch somebody else. So that's covered the Skye loadout. I'll just quickly talk about other champions that I think can work with this. So Bomb King is really good. The champions don't have any resilience, no resistance to stuns and things, so his Grumpy Bomb is going to work most of the time, and generally he's great at putting out damage. Other ones are Pip, because he can slow, and he generally puts out a lot of damage in an areas, and these guys can clump up quite a bit. Barracks turrets do seem to confuse the NPCs, and if you go to the middle, because it's very important to get them in the middle, you can put your turrets on top of the circle on the ceiling, and basically it'll shoot down in below and attack the enemies, and the bots don't seem to be bothered by the turrets, and if they do get bothered by the turrets, then that's good for you because they're not focusing on you anyway. Champions that are bad are flankers, because although you'd think if Victor's ulting all the time, all they want to do is dodge that ulti, well, in fact, because the Torvalds have that cripple, that root, if you get close to the enemies, and most of the flankers do need to get closer to do their damage, or be accurate enough to do enough damage, then you're going to get rooted and pretty much blasted down by the ultimates. So even though you're highly mobile, you're not really that useful, to be honest. I'd just say generally damage dealers just to burst people down as quick as possible, and you're going to be very cautious about going around the map anyway. So if you saw my last video about the hide and seek, it's sort of the same deal where out of the spawn room, if you go left and you go right, and on that platform, the bots don't come up there. However, on this time round, the bots don't always seem to go to the center, so you can't just spam the center. Although, if you do stay in spawn and wait until you see enemies on the point, and it's around 10 to 15 seconds, then it's more likely that more of them will be in the center, which you'll be able to spam and try and kill a few people. However, these bots do like to go and pass and just sort of wander around the sides, and basically, what I'd suggest is, if you're not this guy, stay in the back lines near your spawn as long as possible and stay out of their firing line, although you are still in trouble because the Victors can still ulti you and fire you even on that back line, but the Torvalds won't give you as much trouble. Generally, if all of the enemies are on the point and you can spam it, you can also go to the top of the ceiling and fire down through the hole. And anyway, let's talk about Sky. So you'll be wanting to be the one that goes to the point to see if the enemies are on the point. You basically go up the stairs, right in the middle, have a look, have a peek. If there's an enemy on the top, you probably want to look around to the left and the right, see if enemies are trying to flank you. If not, they're probably underneath. And if there's one above, then you'll have to deal with the one that's away from the point. Basically, if a Victor sees you and starts ulting you, you are pretty much dead. So you don't want to be poking out and killing him without throwing a smoke bomb. So if you do see one further away, run up, throw your smoke bomb. If you miss, then go back again. But if you hit, then they should emote and you should be able to shoot them down. Get your right click off, get your left click off, and just try and burst them down as quick as possible. And if they don't die, you can just keep spamming your smoke bomb and they'll keep emoting. Ideally, all of the champions will go to the middle, and what that'll mean is you can just go to the ceiling, look down, keep throwing your smoke bomb down. They'll emote, just make sure you don't get too close to them, so stay a little bit away from the edge, especially if they're sort of gathered around, and fire down onto them whilst they're emoting, and you can pretty much just mop them up without them having any retaliation. But as I said, it does seem there's either a path or like a variation in these bots, and sometimes they do go around the edges and flank, and that's when they're more deadly, and why in a lot of games it's not always a 5-0, it's like a 5-3 or 5-4 in the ones that we win. And sometimes we lose, especially if you have teammates that go around the map and are dragging people away from the middle all the time, or if you have allies that drag them close to you, or you have allies that pick tanks for some reason in this map, because frontliners aren't really that useful because you have to get close to people, and if they get close to the enemy Victors, they'll start ulting again and they'll come out of their pose, and you're pretty much dead as well. If they aren't in the center and they are going around the map, then keep trying to go around. Pick off as many as you can. The Victors first because they're the biggest danger, because they've got that such a ridiculous blast damage on their ultimate and they just spam it. And you can't really dodge it because it's basically, they click on, it's like a lock on. And even as a Sky, sometimes you'll get hit when you're invisible. I don't know how that happens. I don't know whether they're like basically left clicking all the time, and as they look over you, they hit you anyway when you're invisible. I'm really not sure on that one. You're wanting to just basically throw down your smoke, get somebody to go into their remote, kill them as quick as possible, move on to the next one, but try and focus the Victors. You have to also be really careful because the Torvalds go around the edges, and you can very easily be snuck up upon, and once a Torvald gets close to you and roots you, if there's a Victor even emoting, they might come out of that emote and then start ulting you and you're dead. It's over. This mode is really hard, and honestly, it isn't that fun. It's hard for the sake of being hard. There's not like a load of tactics to it. It's just generally ridiculously hard, and the only way again to beat it is by being really cheesy, like with this Sky meta. I have played a game where the Sky didn't actually do very well and our team was able to kill them, but we were a bit lucky in that everybody kept going to the point, and I think part of that was me putting down those barrack turrets on the top where the circle is, where you can look down, and it just confused them a bit and kept them around the center more. Just some thoughts as well. In the itemization, even though they have life rip, they don't really fire that often, but maybe one person on your team would want to take cauterize. I think really is as a Sky as well, and if you know your teammates are going to die, because they can die so easily, I usually pick up Wrecker so that I have a chance against those Torvalds. If I get left on my own and the smoke starts coming in, I'm taking one at a time, I want to know that I can at least burst down those Torvalds as much as possible at the end if there's 2 of them left, and maybe have a chance. And although the ultimate is good on Sky, if you do bug people out and have them in the smoke and emoting, then you don't really need it as much. But I think as you kill one after another, you will get it up, and it can be very useful. And you can also plant the ulti on the very edge of the circle above, and it will give splash damage below without you having to go next to them and run the risk of being rooted, which I do quite a few times in the game. You might see it in the footage. Honestly, it's really luck of the draw if you're not playing with a team and talking to them. And I just say try and plead with people when they start the game and say, can we wait in the spawn for 10 seconds to see if they'll go onto the point? Then say, I'm going to try and smoke, please don't go close to them as they'll come out of their emoting, and let's try and burst them down when I do that. And also maybe say, please don't go around too much and drag them about, because it'll be harder to kill them altogether. Because ideally you want to hit at least 3 of them in the smoke, and then you only have to deal with 2 that are running around that might be damaging some of your team. Again, it is a painful mode, and even if you're doing this method, it can not pan out, and it really relies on your team not just going down straight away and dying. So yeah, it's just so painful, this mode is. And oh man, what does everyone else think about it? Are you as tilted as I have been today trying to get a guide together and something that is working efficiently to actually give a guide for somebody that's playing solo and will win most of the time with the Sky? And I think that it also does rely a bit on skill, because it relies a bit on your awareness to make sure that you're not being followed, to try and get away from things. But this is probably the best way to go about it. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button. If you didn't, dislike it if you really have to. And subscribe for more of my content. I'll see you all next time. Joshino.